Okay, so everything looks good. Everything looks great. Awesome. So first of all, I want to start this webinar off by thanking you very much for coming out on a Friday night and watching me do what I do. Or for some of those people that are in Australia, you're very early Saturday morning. And if you happen to be in maybe Europe and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're a trooper. Or you just got back from a really late night. But regardless, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate everything that you guys do for me. I know that you guys thank me countlessly for all the things that I do for you, but you do so much for me by giving me the ability to give you this space and have this stuff heard. And I cannot thank you guys enough, really. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. It's been great. It's always going to be great, and I appreciate you. So before I start crying and making my makeup run down my face, I'm going to get started. So this whole thing about palette effects. Palette effects is an interesting thing because, you see, it unlocks some really cool features. And the idea here is that you can actually get an artistic style without having years of practice or years of education or years of things leading up to it. I'm going to tell you that because if you're not familiar with who I am, some people might be coming in here for the very first time and not know who Blake Rudis is. I got my degree in sculpture and printmaking. It's actually a self-declared minor in sculpture because I took so many darn sculpture classes, but it was sculpture and printmaking. And I was big into painting. And if you've ever heard me talk about my background, you'll understand why this is so imperative when we go through and we're talking about photography. Because the thing about it is that I got my degree in printmaking and sculpture. And printmaking is kind of like everything. There's some sculpture involved, there's some painting, there's some drawing, there's photography. Everything is involved in printmaking. So I got my degree in printmaking because I felt it had the most of the arts all wrapped up into one nice, neat little place. Why does that help you now as a photographer, learning from someone like me who's an artist, painter, printmaker, sculptor, blah, 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 you name it? Well, I'm going to tell you a couple reasons why. Because I've drawn some extremely horrible compositions. And when you've drawn a composition that takes you 4 hours to draw, you realize how important it is to get that composition right before you sit down to draw a 4-hour composition that's horrible. So when it comes to photography, I can walk up to a scene and pretty much know the best shot because I've studied many places and I've drawn many places through my education. Secondly, as a sculptor, if you know how to sculpt in the round, and what they mean in the round is to sculpt something in 360 degrees. What that helps you do as a photographer is it helps you photograph things in 360 degrees. My face is not a flat object. Even though it's translated that way when it comes to the print, my face is actually a three-dimensional object. I have the side of my nose here. I have some rather large antenna-sized ears. I'm very aware of sculptural environments. So when I'm shooting, that gives me the ability to look at things in 3 dimensions and see what the best shot would be for it. It also helps me sculpt with light. And if you've taken anything on my dodging and burning courses, you know how often I talk about sculpting with light, with dodging and burning, and how important that is. But then, and probably the most important part, is the painter's aspect. And you might be thinking, why a painter for a photographer, right? Most of you who know my spiel understand this. Painters get extensive color theory training. What happens to this color when you do this to this color? What happens to this color when you do this to this color? And I'll tell you, in between my time as going from printmaking in college to becoming a photographer, I was a painter for about 2.5, almost 3 years. In that time, in 1 year actually, I counted, I painted 120 paintings. Some of them were this big, some of them were this big, and 2 of them are actually 4 foot by 6 foot, very large scale paintings. But with these paintings, what was I doing? I was learning color theory, really learning color theory to a point that I knew exactly what happened to the color blue when I added its complement to it and what happened to all the other colors. It wasn't until about 2014 that I actually made a connection. Now that was about 2006. 8 years later, I made a connection for photographers to painters. And from there, my work went poof. And I cannot tell you how important it was for me to take that color theory education and bring it into my photography. And if you're thinking, color theory, color schmeary. No, color theory is critical. It's absolutely imperative. And actually, right now, I guarantee you that you are working with color theory as you're editing your images. You just may not even know it. It's kind of ingrained into Photoshop, and I'm going to show you some of that stuff tonight. Beyond that, that also kind of helps me be an artist. It helps me understand what I want my creative vision and what I want my creative style to be. So when it comes to post-processing photographs, you'd be really shocked. The survey that I put out, I asked you those questions about how important is it for a photographer to have an artistic style. I think one person answered not important. So out of the, 200 or so entries that came in, one person said it's not important. And I'm not bashing that one person, because that one person could be in here. But that means that over 99% of the people that answered that survey said it was either important or it might be important. So what does that mean for you? That means that if you haven't gotten to a point where you understand your creative vision and your creative style, you're really holding yourself back from becoming the artist that you need to be. And before you say, Blake, I'm not an artist, I gotta shut that down. I gotta shut that down, because I know this. When you label, you enable. If I label you an artist, I'm enabling you to become one. I'm enabling you to have the ability to think like an artist, to breathe like an artist, and to post-process your pictures like an artist. And that's a very, sometimes difficult skill to pick up, but when you're told to do it, it happens a lot quicker than when you think you might need or might not need to do it. So, looking at my notes here, this has unlocked a lot of possibilities for a lot of people so far. I've gotten a lot of emails coming into me about how excited people are for this. And some people are already seeing the possibilities for the artistic vision almost immediately. It's absolutely incredible. I'm getting people sending me images about what they're doing with the palette effects and how it's already transforming their work. And what they're doing is just like button pushing, because they don't even want to go through the training yet. They just want to play with this new pretty little thing. And I have to tell you that it is pretty, but you kind of have to get the education on it, because, and it doesn't come without the education, because this was developed with my right brain for my left brain. So in order to get you up to speed for both sides of my brain, you've got to go through the education. And it's really good. It's really good, and it's easy, and it's palatable. But what I mean is that in the future, you're going to get to a point where you no longer come into your Photoshop processing and guess, okay? There's gonna be a future for you when you come into Photoshop and you already know what you're going to do to your photographs when it comes to tone, when it comes to color, and when it comes to your workflow. And your artistic style is gonna come out exponentially in everything that you do. But it won't until you get the right tools to get you to that point. And that's what Palette Effects is all about. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. I'm going to switch over to Photoshop here, and we're going to do a little bit of Photoshopping. If I can get out of my, here we go, cool. Okay, I'm going to switch my screen over. Hopefully I don't lose you, because if I do lose you, this is the point where I probably will, because this is where everything goes wrong in webinars. Okay, are we still here? Does everyone still see my screen? I'll wait until someone says yes while I take a drink, and then we'll go. Okay, everyone sees it. Awesome. Sweet. That was a good drink break. So first of all, before we begin, I'm going to put a pretty picture up, and I'm going to show you what this Palette Effects thing looks like first, okay? So if you see across the top here, it says tone, color, and effects right across the top, right? And anyone who owns the Zone System Express, this might be very reminiscent to what you've seen with the Zone System Express. And there's a reason for that, because in the training, I kind of blow your mind a little bit. Because I've always told you tone, color, and effects, right? Tone, color, and effects. Tone, color, and effects. Well, guess what? Effects can be broken down into tone effects, color effects, and artistic effects. So now we've got tone, color, and effects, but we've got tone effects, color effects, and artistic effects. And basically what this panel is designed for is for the artistic effects of things. So when we look at this, we see tone here, we see color here, and effects. And I don't want you to get that confused with the Zone System Express. Okay, here's the Zone System Express. They look very different. You can see that Palette Effects actually has a lot more colored buttons, and they're outlined in a much different way. What this is opening up for is, I don't want to confuse this with you with the initial tone, color, and effects things, okay? What this is tone effects, color effects, and artistic effects. because we're breaking down the last part of our workflow, the most influential part of our workflow, to unlock that future that we want, which is coming into Photoshop and not having to worry about how are we going to discover our artistic style, right? So the thing about this is a lot of times it comes down to I would like to artistically develop my images. However, I don't have a structured process for that. And the thing about that is when you really think about the structure of things, if you were to come up with the structure of how to do things artistically, it really comes down to a workflow of sorts, but more so a system. So this is broken down into a systematic way, so that after you've got a technically perfect tone and color image, like this one here of Mesa Arch, I would consider this a very beautiful image, to the point that I think I've even posted it like this. But I'm telling you, it can go farther. We get to this point where we don't understand what we need to do because we don't understand what possibilities we have for us. So what this does is it gives you possibilities that you never thought were imaginable, or at least accessible. You know they're imaginable because you see that when you go to Mesa Arch and you take this picture, it doesn't look like Blake Rudis's picture on 500px. And when I go to 500px and I type in Mesa Arch, mine doesn't look like what those people have. All right? Because when you get a technically perfect tone and color image, all you are at that point is a technician of post-processing. And you can be a technician of post-processing, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But what we want to do, and why you're here, is that you want to become an artist. You want to learn the artistic nature and the creative development of things, and that's what Pallet Effects is for. So I'm going to show you just how quick and how easy this is and how things are kind of laid out. So we've got tone effects here. All of these buttons, there's only 8 buttons here, but these 8 buttons are very intricately created for tone effects, and I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to make a killer black and white image. Here we have color effects. You have some amplifiers. And these amplifiers, when you press them, all they do is they just brighten up your image based on the color that's already available in them and maybe give you a little bit more. And it's very subtle, but very effective. That's called the sunset amplifier. And it's very effective. It's set to a very low opacity. So if you want 2 of them, you just hit 2. And now we've got a very nicely amplified sunset photograph with 2 clicks of a button, okay? But then we've got effects over here. So I'm gonna start in this color area, and I'm just gonna show you kind of how I would process towards a beautifully colored image, because I'm also going to do this in black and white. And I had someone sent me a message today on my email, and they said, Blake, I'm going through the tone module, and I don't necessarily think it's important to have all this black and white information in here because I don't process black and white images. And while I understand that completely, I told that individual I don't process a whole lot of black and white images either. But I'll tell you this, when you understand processing images in black and white and getting tone images that will just knock your socks off, it's going to do the same thing in your color world, because you're going to see contrast in a better way, in a new way, and it's going to open possibilities for you that you never thought were even imaginable in your color work because you understand black and white. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do kind of my process of what happens when I do what to my images. So if we look at this, this is a grading palette, and this grading palette is designed with color theory in mind. Okay, so if you have this magenta here, this is going to add a slight tinge of magenta to the image. If you look at it, it says magenta 5 set to soft light at 15% opacity. Each one of these buttons is set to a different look for the color magenta. So if I start going through these, I can see that that's magenta 3, this is magenta 4, magenta 5. I kind of like the way magenta 1, or no, let's go with magenta 5 looks. I like the way that looks. So it gives me a color grade to my image with the click of a button for the color magenta that I want. So how do I know that I want magenta? Well, when I look at this image, I see that there's a lot of orange in here and there's some blues back here, but it's not really a sunset looking image. And I'm going to tell you that the color that was happening behind Hudson Henry and I when we were out here shooting at Mesa Arch was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, there was this beautiful magenta glow happening behind us. And I know it because I saw it and I felt it. But when I put my image into and I post-processed it, it didn't come out that way. So here, if I hit magenta 5, this is set to 15%. But you see we have our percentages down here. So this is 20%, 30%, 40%. This is getting darker and darker as the night progresses, or more and more rich as the sunset progresses. So I'm going to go with let's go with about 20% here. Then there's this other thing here called warm glow. And if you're familiar with the Zone System Express, there's a radiance action in there. And that radiance action, that's exactly what warm glow does here, but it gives your image a warm feeling on top of that radiating glow that you've known to love in the Zone System Express from the customized radiance. So if we press this warm glow button, it's going to ask me how I want to Gaussian blur my photograph. And this is the nature of how far you bring this is how much, how soft you want it to be. If you want it to be really soft, keep it between 10 and 40. If you want it to be not so soft but have a delicate feel, bring it up really high. If you don't want it to be soft at all but still have that contrast, you bring it up low, or bring it down low, I should say, and press OK. So then it's going to bring up my highlights and shadows adjustments here, where this gives me the ability to come in and start crafting the light of my photograph. And that's what this is for. You know, I don't want you to come in here and just start slamming sliders around, because slider slamming is the worst representation of image editing. But if we bring this down in the tonal section, you see that all the contrast tightens up, but it does it based on the highlights and the shadows. As I told you before, we're now sculpting with light. This is kind of a form of dodging and burning in a very rudimentary way. But this gives us the ability to sculpt our highlights and sculpt our shadows and get this image to where we want it to be with a nice contrasty glow to it. And I'll press OK. What you'll see afterwards, though, is that we have a warm gradient, a colorized layer, and then our warm glow here. Because these are all editable. I don't want to give you something that is going to flatten your image down and say, okay, you've got Blake's look. These are not presets. While there are preset things happening, pre-set things happening, these are not presets. Got it? So what that means is that when you push a button, it's all 100% non-destructive, and you are free to go in and modify them as you see fit. So here, I've got the gradient. This is telling me, because I have the warm glow selected, not the cool glow selected, that it's got this gradient in there. And you'll see all these gradients in here. I'm giving you all of my gradients with the education package. So everything that I have access to, you have access to. It's 109 gradients. So even though the warm glow is set up for me like this, I still have the ability to come in and edit things. Now, I did tell you that I wanted to show you some things when it comes to black and white processing. So let's say I'm at a point now where I'm like, okay, I really like the way this warm glow looks. I mean, look at that. That's awesome. But see, this is the difference here. Technically perfect tone and color wise, this gets into an artistic feeling and artistic rendering. And I know that because here's the tipping point. Let's say I wanted this gradient to now be this bluish gradient. Notice how things are getting cooler, okay? Because I'm making the artistic decision to make this warmer or cooler based on my decisions. And if I'm moving kind of fast here, don't worry. All of this is spelled out in the education. 7.5 hours of education, and I go very slow through each one of these buttons, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and go back in my history here so I can get back on track here. But this is the basic idea of a nice artistically formed image. I'm starting to craft an artistic style. But I'm at a turning point here where I could say, you know what? I like where this is going, but what happens if I want to go another direction? What happens if I want to make this black and white, but I don't want to destroy any of the things that are happening here? There's a button right here down here called Duplicate. And what this does is it's going to duplicate your work onto a new document and flatten it down, so that now you can build up whatever you need to build up on here, and if you want to, you can transfer it back to this document. So I'm going to go into the tone here. And with this tone, I'm going to go into the black and white glow. So you can see what the black and white glow looks like. And again, it's very similar to the warm glow. Bring this up, it's going to have a delicate nature to the glowing, radiating look. If you bring it way down, it's not going to be very delicate at all. It's going to be rather harsh in the contrast. If you leave it in the middle, you're going to get a soft edge type of look on your photograph. And you can kind of see that in this example here. It's really small. I apologize. Maybe I can't make that bigger right now, but it's really kind of small down there right now. But if we were to bring this up and you see what that looks like, that little teeny tiny little document right there, does that look kind of like a dodge and burn layer? Because it's kind of what we're doing here. We're doing very minute adjustments. Since I already have a very nice glow from the other one, I'm not going to go too heavy on that. But what this is going to do is it's going to give us the exact same dialogue. Because while we did have a color image, now we can fine tune and sculpt this light for our black and white process. So we get this nice and dialed in to where we want it to be. What I like in my black and white images might be different from what you like in your black and white images. I give you many options on this. This silver effect is very interesting. But when I go ahead and press OK, it's going to lay this out for me so I have a tone modification above that glow layer. So what this is doing, if we were to break this down and look at this layers palette, we have our black and white color adjustment down here, which I'll show you that in a second. We have our black and white gradient map that's making our black and white image. We have our black and white glow that's a stamp of everything below. And then we have our tone modifier. The tone modifier is nothing more than a curves adjustment layer that allows us to fine tune all of that even more. But I like my black and white images on the more contrasty side because what I like in my black and white are the stars of the show. Black and white and all the colors in between. So if I don't have pure black and I don't have pure white in there, it doesn't resonate well with me. Might be different for some people, but that's my style. I've known and understood my style based off of all the processing and the artistic rendering that I do with my images. So once I've got that tone modifier set, if I come down here to this color adjustment, this is basically a hue saturation adjustment layer that if I click on the targeted adjustment tool, I'm working on a black and white image, but now I'm working on the colors in that black and white image that appear underneath it so that I can get a very beautifully rendered black and white image as I sculpt with light. And if we click up here, we see that these are our blues and there's some magentas up here too. So we can maybe raise the saturation in our magenta back there, or our blue back there, or make it lighter. I kind of like what happens when we make it a little bit darker back there. And I can start getting a really nice crafted black and white photograph. And if you're thinking, well, okay, Blake, I could do the same thing with a stinking black and white gradient map. Well, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to make a stamp here. This is our black and white with the glow. I'm going to go ahead and delete all this work, and I'm going to make a new gradient that is set to black and white, and I will show you what it looks like. So this is a regular black and white image. Nothing crazy, nothing spectacular, just a gradient map. This is what happens after we fine-tune, craft, and hone our image. You see, it's kind of like we dodged and burned, but we really haven't dodged and burned. And I'm not even talking about dodging and burning at this point. You can still come in and dodge and burn your work. But the idea here is that I just wanted to show you with this first image here, that starting to develop your artistic style and your artistic nature it's kind of difficult at first. And I've even got a question from somebody the other day asking me, Blake, I would love to be able to do the things that you do, but I'm just not an artist. But here's what I want to stress to you. If you're saying that right now, if you're sitting in your seat and you're saying that, I'm labeling you an artist. I need you to label you an artist because I need you to enable yourself that way. I'm going to share another tidbit of information with you from my very first webinar with Topaz Labs in 2012. Very first webinar I ever did. There was over 1,000 people that signed up for it. And when Nicole introduced me, she said, we've got a pro photographer here, Blake Rudis. And I immediately wanted to crap my pants. Pardon me for saying that. But someone had finally, for the first time in my life, called me a pro photographer. I'm not joking. That was the first time someone had ever called me a pro. So I ran upstairs to my wife after the webinar was over, and she said, how'd it go? I said, I don't know. I don't remember a damn thing, but I do remember this, that Nicole from Topaz Labs just told me that I was a pro. And I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now. Because from that moment on, I considered myself a professional photographer. Not a hobbyist that was teaching people things, but someone who is a professional. And I can guarantee you that my education and my training from that moment on, from that moment in 2012, went from kind of subpar to me wanting to be the best damn photo educator I could possibly become. And the power of labeling is that she enabled me to be what I always wanted to be. So what I challenge you to do is label yourself, because I'm already doing it. If you're in this webinar right now and you're watching this, if you're in this right now and you're watching this, you are an artist. You are not a photographer, because nobody would be watching a webinar on a Friday night about an artistic tool if they didn't consider themselves an artist. So if you get nothing from me tonight, nothing at all, I want you to get this. I want you to get the fact that you're an artist. Stop saying that you're not, start believing that you are, and process your images that way tomorrow. Put it on a damn sticky note if you have to. Sorry, I'm coming out because I'm passionate about this. Put it on a sticky note, put it on your monitor and say, I am an artist. Boom, done. Or you can go to Amazon and type F64 Academy. I have a shirt that says, hello, my name is Artist. Underneath that says, I am a photographer. Because I label myself that way. And the reason why I label myself that way is I've enabled myself to make artistic images. All right, so we'll go ahead and press on. I'm getting fired up. You guys really got me jazzed up tonight. This is, you're getting Blake in a rare form. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up our next image here. We have, let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and lower this here. I've got my next one. It's in this folder here that's not coming up for some reason. There it is. Okay, so we're looking at an image that might be somewhat, we said the word subpar, okay? This is coming straight out of Adobe Camera Raw. I didn't do much in the way of processing, just kind of delicate processing just to get my tones and my colors right. Pardon me while I take a sip. The thing here is that you see what's going on in the background here. And during the bonus videos, I showed you this tip with this saturation boost technique. And I'm going to show you again here because it's built right into this panel. If I click this saturation boost, watch what happens. Nothing, really. You're saying, Blake, nothing happened. No, something happened. It's just very delicate. We bring this to 100%. Look at that background. And I'm saying this because I have never once, I've been in Photoshop for almost 20 years now, and I've never once found a way to make a saturation boost that can do that to my colors. I don't want you to pay attention to what's happening down here. This is disgusting. But look what's happening to the color that I want to be the color that it is. I want it to be this beautiful golden glow. Watch what happens if I come in here and try to take a hue saturation adjustment layer and slam it up. Look at that. It's not a natural saturation boost. Look at the back. It actually almost looks like it got desaturated or nothing at all. You see the difference there? And this is the master. Even if I try to click on these colors and bring them up, I can't get any more out of it. But with this saturation boost, with this natural saturation boost that is built right into Palette Effects, you can see that these colors look absolutely gorgeous. And we have some protection measures too. So if you come down here, yeah, this saturation boost looks disgusting on our dark areas, but what are those? Well, those are darks and those are midtones. So if we say only apply this to our lights, we get a really good starting point for maybe a mask that we can make on the rest of it. So we've already said, okay, only apply this to my lights. We've got a beautiful glow happening up there in the sky now that would not have been present without that button. And we are set to 100%, so it's a little harsh. Bring that down to about 70%, and then come over here to your mask with a masking tool, and boom. You now have the beautiful light in the background that's not really affecting the foreground at all. And we could probably get a little bit better with that. I'm moving rather quickly here so we can get to some questions. But you know, if we need to move that mask down, we could. So we got our saturation boost on there, and now we need to say, okay, what else do we need to do with this? Well, if we look in our dark areas down here, there's a lot of dark areas here, but there's nothing really going on in them. I don't like the way the dark areas look. Well, there's a button right here that's called Reduction Warm. And when you press this, it's going to reduce the darks in your image, but give them a nice glowing, warm color to them. If I delete that layer and maybe do the Reduction Cold, it's going to give them a semi-cold feel to them. So I know that I want this image to be warmer, so I'll hit Reduction Warm. And with that Reduction Warm, all it's really doing with my blacks here and the selective color is bringing my blacks down, just give me really quick access to it. And from there, it's a sunset. So if I hit the Sunset Amplifier button, look at how I get a nice glow in the background. If it's not quite as much as I want it to be, I can either come in here to the reds and bump those up a little bit more, or I take the easy route and say, you know what, give me another one. I'll take another one of those. So we're already working towards a better artistically rendered image. Was this image perfect with tone and color before? If you said yes, I would venture to say no, but it can be. Because when we look at this, it's there, it's got some potential. And if you're from Oregon, this is the Tillamook Lighthouse in the background from Indian Beach. Absolutely beautiful place to photograph. And Tillamook, that is very far away. So you have to get a pretty nice long lens on there in order to get that. But beautiful night to be out. Any night's a good night to be out photographing in Oregon. So we've got this nice kind of reduced red going on with our image. We've doubled it twice. Now we can go into maybe some of our warming effects. And I'm going to go into a warming 3. And that might be a little too much. What that's doing is, if you look at it, it's warming set to linear dodge at 10%. So we have these other colors here, and these other colors will come into play. I'm not going to show you that. Actually, if you stay till the end, I'm going to show you one of the very coolest things about Palette Effects, and it's this little Analyze Palette button. So that's your little hook, because it's wicked awesome. So we got the warming 3 set up. We got a nice look to our photograph. You see how that's set to 10%? One of the differences that you'll see here between the Zone System Express is I added a 5% button, because even with these color grades, even at 10%, it's too much. But there's a 5% to give me a nice subtle look. I'm starting to get that sunset glow. happening on the rocks now, which was not present before. And quite frankly, I probably would have thrown this photograph away, to be honest with you, if I didn't understand that I could do something with it. Yeah, we got some nice looks on the water here, but there's really nothing going on here to draw my attention. Now I'm starting to get that glow. I purposely selected this image for you so that you would see that you could do some really good stuff with it. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the warm glow. And you're thinking, Blake, you're doing the exact same thing you did on the last one. I'm doing this for a reason, because what I'm going to show you is that someone asked me, are you going to talk about artistic styling and knowing when to do something? And that's what this is here, because I'm going to show you how this can be changed very quickly with the settings that we already have. So I'm going to leave this at about 36% with the pixels here, or 36 pixels, I should say, because I like the way it's hitting the image. One of the things that we should probably do, just as an aside, is tell Adobe to change everything that says pixels to %, because that would be really awesome for our images. That way, if you had a low-res image and you had it set to 5%, it would be the exact same as me with the high-res image set to 5%. But hey, we can all put in a, what do you call that thing, like a survey or something to Adobe and tell them to change everything that says pixels to %. That'd be awesome. Okay, moving right along, Blake. See, these are set to %. All right, never mind. So we'll move this up a little bit, maybe make that a little bit brighter in our midtones. Again, this tone is my main slider, so I'm going to target that one first in the tones, and then go to the highlights, maybe bring that down, and that looks great and beautiful right there. And I already like the way this looks. I mean, this is starting to look like a nice artistically styled image. If by chance this is too soft for you, if you double click this warm glow, you'll see that inside here, if we go into our blending options, it's got a very delicate blend. So if you know anything about blend if, we're basically saying don't affect our darkest dark areas, but slowly blend yourself into the photograph and slowly blend yourself in this way. So what this does is if we bring this in really close on both sides, it's a very soft and delicate image. But when we bring these more towards the midtones, we start to get some of that soft edge and we get rid of it. So it's 100% modifiable. But here's that question, Blake, how do you know how to artistically process this? And how do you develop a style from that? Well, I like how warm this looks now. I think right now we're at a point where this looks pretty darn good from where it began. An image that we probably would have thrown away is now being resurrected to a point that we could be very happy with this. And you know, I might actually even run a test on this and throw it up on 500px and see how high of a rating it gets, just so I can prove the point. So what I can do from here though, is if I go into this warm glow, actually before that, I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit the duplicate button here so I keep my work so that I can bring this over to 500px and you guys can see it later on 500px. So if we go to the warm glow, I want to now see what this image would look like in a different light. Okay, and I say in a different light because this is a warm Oregon evening. How can we change this warm Oregon evening into a very cool Oregon evening with just the click of a few buttons? If we go into the warm gradient, click on the gradient, now change this to a cool gradient. If we go to the colorize, we can now move this hue over to a blue. If we come down here to warming 3, we change this to a blue. If we go to this sunset amplifier, we can just go ahead and delete those. And if we change this warm reduction here in those blacks, and now move this over to the other side, look how everything is now more of a cool Oregon evening, okay? So I showed you that here is the warm Oregon evening, and now here is the cool Oregon evening, and that was very quick. I just went back, and what did I do? I actually used the law of color theory and complementary colors to change my image from a warm image to a cool image. And while you might think that this is all random and predetermined, I didn't really plan that. So what I'm trying to tell you there is that with this knowledge of color theory that you get from being a painter, you can decide really quickly how you want to change course at the flip of a switch to make your image go from a warm image to a cool image, all right? And really, all this stuff, I showed the exact same process in the training, and it's more dialed down. It's of an image of the San Francisco Bay Area that you've probably gotten sick of by now because it's the star image for Pallet effects. It's the one that has the Golden Gate in the background. That's an image I'm letting you work on right there along with me because all the follow-along images that I work on in Pallet effects are right there for you to work on as well. So, That's the idea of developing that artistic style. How do you develop that artistic style? Well, I'm gonna tell you that you can't develop that artistic style until you start thinking like an artist, start thinking like a painter, and start developing some very rudimentary color theory skills. And all of those are taught in the education. I actually spend, I think, an hour and a half on just color theory alone. A whole module on color theory. Of the 6, there's a color theory module. So now I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'm going to show you a really quick, cool trick that is in here also. So here is a picture of my son. This is William. William, say hello. Hello. He likes my cameras just as much as I do. He also likes hats, so therefore he likes my fedora that I wear on my workshops. So he grabs my fedora. He takes one of my old cameras that I let him throw around that I got at the thrift shop for $5, believe it or not. And he just is outside playing. You know, he's not taking any pictures. He's just having a good time. But as a father, photographer, it's sometimes hard to capture my children in the way that I want to. I got really lucky with this one. And if you ever photograph a 2.5-year-old, he was 2.5 at the time, they move very fast. They don't care if you say, hey, stop. They don't care if you say, move your chin to the left. They don't care if the light is right. So you are the one that has to just be snap happy and pray that you get a good one. So this picture of William, what I want to show you here is in the effects tab. So we've talked about tone, we've talked about color. So now let's move on over to effects. These effects that are here are actually developed from analog ideas, and analog being actual film. So if you ever processed actual film, you'll notice that a lot of these things are very similar to things that you may have done in your years of processing film. A cross process, a daguerreotype, a sepia tone, a cyanotype, Kodachrome glow. The Kodachrome glow is kind of a mix on an old school look for Kodachrome, but a new school glow like you see with all these other glows. Notice how there's a trend. You get an artistic glow in every one of these. And then we have a Lomograph effect and a bleach bypass effect. So with this image, if we pressed cyanotype, it's going to give us a cyanotype looking photo. And I think these are kind of kitsch. So I'm not saying that I ducked out by doing this. And I was being kitsch with a preset, because what is given to us and afforded to us down here? Only lights, only mids, only darks, no darks, and no lights. So I can come in here and say, you know what? I really only want that to affect my darks. And you can experiment very quickly and very easily and see exactly what look you're going to get very quickly. Only darks is what this cyanotype is going to affect. And because it's rather harsh right now, I might come in here and drop this to 50% to see what kind of color I'm going to get with that. The idea here is I want to go with that vintagey kind of glow that everyone's going for these days in their portrait work. I want that vintagey kind of look, that old school tattered look. Isn't that kind of interesting how the trends in photography, you know, we went from having this very contrasty, very sharp photography to now having this, I don't know, like look like old school analog film, right? It's kind of weird how trends happen like that. We get these high-end cameras like a Sony A7R II and we want to make it look like a Polaroid SX70. It blows my mind. But hey, it looks good. I get it. I like it because I like that vintage look myself. So we get the cyanotype look in the side of his face there. But then we also have the ability to maybe come in here and warm it up a little bit. So by hitting warming 3, and I can come in here and I can press buttons randomly. And look, even by pressing buttons randomly, I'm getting a pretty good looking image. I mean, I'm actually pretty satisfied with that effect. I don't know about you, but that's pretty interesting. And I'm just pressing buttons. But I don't want you to just press buttons. That's not the whole idea behind this. The idea behind this is that you understand what those buttons do. The other thing here is this Lomograph effect. And this is very interesting. And lomography is basically like toy camera photography. And it was developed, I believe, in the early 2000s, late 90s. And it was people that deliberately used subpar and kind of bad cameras that purposefully made light leaks in their images so that they could get this artistic, spontaneous type of look in their photos. They never knew what they were going to get until they processed the film. Well, this Lomograph effect, you're going to know what you're going to get because it's already predetermined. But if you press it, it's going to want to blur your image to make it look kind of like a toy. Again, if you want a softer looking image, you can go with that. Or if you want a more contrasty image, you can go with that as well. And you can press OK. But what it's going to do is it's going to put a series of gradients on our image like this. A series of gradients on our photograph. But what I don't want is I don't want this layer right here because I don't want any of that soft edge look. So I can just delete it. If I don't want that soft edge look, I can delete it. But each one of these areas here is editable. So we have a corner flare up here. And this corner flare, if you watch the third bonus video, I showed the firefighter image and how this can be used to be moved around to give kind of like a nice spotlight of color to a certain area in our image. I'll put it right here because I like it, makes it look kind of like a sunset kind of glow coming across my son's face. If I change the scale, it's going to make that glow a little bit bigger and be more over the whole photograph. So now I'm starting to get this nice beautiful orange glow on the side of his face. By default, it's set to a purple kind of flare coming up from the bottom. If you don't like it, don't worry about it. You're not stuck with purple. Just click on that gradient, click on this color, and change it to maybe, I don't know, a brownish color or something like that to match your image, or maybe a blue color to kind of offset the oranges that we have going on. Again, I'm thinking color theory, I'm thinking art related, okay? And I can drop the opacity on that if I need to, because right now it's set to 50%. I could come down to say, you know, that blue is coming off a little strong at the bottom. And then we have a left flare along the left-hand side. Now, the really cool thing about all of this is that you see that these effects now very quickly made a nice kind of vintage style look to my photograph that might be a little harsh on the Lomograph side, but again, just drop the opacity down to, I don't know, 60%. You can even do the percentage on the whole folder like that. So that looks really good. So what I can actually do here, and this is really cool, because I don't have any masks here, and this is a really cool effect within the palette effects. If I take these and put them all into the same group, if you're running Photoshop CC, it doesn't work in CS6, but if you're running Photoshop CC, you can hit this button right here called Save LUT. This is a lookup table. I'm going to just save this as, you know, 03.jpg, that's fine, and I'm going to press OK. I'm going to save it right into this webinar folder, and I'm going to press Save. What that lookup table does is it looks at the overall image, it decides where my highlights, midtones, and my shadows are, and it creates the look of this, but it can do it in the click of a button. So if I bring in another photo, I can say Apply Lookup Table. Go to that device link and click on that, and now you see that I have that exact same look and feel on my image from that lookup table. It might not come off exactly like it did in the last image, so what we can do is if we just go into palette effects, we might just change that to color, or change it to soft light, or change it to luminosity, or leave it at normal and just drop the percentage a little bit to get that glow that I had before. So now we have that exact same look from the other image on now this image. Very quick, very easy, and very awesome. So if I open up this last image here, see this last image, this is actually taken at Kansas City on top of the public library. There's a parking garage up there. When we look at images that are taken at night, images that are taken at night have so many different lights. Look at this light up here. It's very gross and disgusting because of the fact that this light wasn't being captured the same as this light. This light is actually taking precedence over the rest of it. It's competing color temperatures. Even the sky was actually more blue than the magenta haze that we have up there. So I'm going to show you this really cool trick to combat this. You see this color that's really coming off here? With the laws of color theory, I can tell you exactly what color I need to add to this image so that I can fix that color temperature. Because a lot of questions I get are, Blake, how do you fix color temperatures that are really off and really wild and running rampant on my image? Here's how you do it. See this Analyze Palette button here? Click that. It's going to look hideous. Thank you. Awesome. Game over. We're done. No, what this is doing is it's analyzing your palette and it's telling you what color is the inverse relationship to the color in your image. This information, this data that we're receiving here is extremely critical. You might gaff it off as an ugly photograph, but watch this. If I click this button right here, and then I click on that culprit area that's my color. If I change this to localized color, I can get a very finite mask for the exact area that is being a pain in my rear, and I can press OK. Once I press OK with that, see that color? I can come in here and I can get a very close color to that. I'm going to use this one because it's set to the color blend mode. I'll press that color and I'll turn Analyze Palette off. Watch this. On, off. Can't really tell right now. Let me bring it up to 30%. Let me bring it to 20%. We've offset that bluish color that's happening. But I can get even more finite with it. With that Analyze Palette button, I can turn that back on, that layer right underneath back on, double click right here in this color, and then I can click on that color in my image that is being a pain, and press OK, and get the exact color that is going to offset the temperature of that vibrant, glowing blue that I have from a very bad color temperature standpoint. Now, imagine this. You can go all over your image and do this. And you can go all over your image and not just add the color that you would use to offset it, but also add the colors to your image that would make that area glow. So, the blue up here in the sky, if I wanted to fix that, what would I do? Well, I could go ahead and use the Analyze Palette button, click on the eyedropper, and start clicking areas of my sky up there, press OK. And if I wanted to offset that color, I would use the color that I want to, maybe desaturate that area up there. But what if I wanted to boost it up? Well, then I would just select a blue color. I would select probably this blue color right here and turn that off. Now my sky is more blue and my color temperature in the foreground is much better. And it's a great starting point to go from. Here is the link. I'll put it right into the comments here. That'll take you right to F64. Can you selectively get rid of color noise with this program? Maybe, but probably not as easily as you could if you just went to Adobe Camera Raw. This is more for the artistic styling. It can be used not just for artistic styling, because you saw that I used it for something other than that, but you'd be really good to get started. You probably couldn't get rid of the color noise, but you could definitely use it for getting rid of color casts. Maybe not color noise, but color casts. Can you selectively get rid of, how many computers does this purchase go on? So Zasha, if you own the computers, you can put this on as many computers as you want. I have it on this computer here. I have a computer right here that I have it on. I have a computer upstairs that I have it on, and I have it on my travel laptop computer that I have over here. Does it work in 16-bit, Mark? Yes. All of those images that I was working on are 16-bit. Well, they were before when they were TIFFs or Adobe Camera Raw images. Yes, it does work in 16-bit, not just in 8-bit. Alan, can't seem to get the price when I try and place my order. What's up? It should be okay. If you go to this link, Alan, it should be okay. The new color theory, new or the same as the zone system panel? Thanks, Bob. That's a good question. It's not, the color theory that's happening here is not the color zone system. So the color zone system is completely separate. Actually, a lot of people have asked, is this the zone system? Is the zone system even included in this? No. The zone system is a completely separate panel that does all of its own stuff. This is the zone, this is the palette effects, which is designed for color theory and artistic color grading. So all of the stuff that you have in the Zone System Express, completely separate panel. If you think about my workflow, how does it work now, Blake? Did you just replace the Zone System? No. I use the Zone System Express to get a technically beautiful tone and color rendered image, and then I go into palette effects to get my artistic expression. And I'll tell you that I probably spend more time in the palette effects honing and crafting that artistic vision than I do getting the technically perfect color photograph or tone photograph. But that's the nature of the artistry. But it does work faster as you get better. Let's see here. Let's see, any good questions here? When will you develop this for On1 Raw? Great question, Tom. As it stands right now, I cannot make plugins for Raw. It doesn't have that ability to plug into yet. You can port out of On1 Photo Raw. You can port your work out from On1 Photo Raw into Photoshop, use palette effects, and then go back into Photo Raw if you'd like. I do show that in the education because I do use Photo Raw sometimes too. I have used the Zone System Express for a while now. How will palette effects panel add to my long exposure images? Okay, Kelly, that's very similar to what I just said, that this is not the same as Zone System Express. I use that first, and then I jump into this for color correcting. Where do we get the recording of this webinar? Great question, James Smith. If you are James Smith, I'm probably the same James Smith from Delaware, maybe? Is that? If you are, I'm from Delaware, that's why I said that. If you're an F64 Elite member, this will indefinitely be in F64 Elite. If you're not an F64 Elite member, I will be giving out this replay to all the people who have showed up here, just for those individuals that showed up here. But if you're an F64 Elite member, it will always be on F64 Elite, because F64 Elite members have access to every live event that I've ever done, also as an F64 Elite member. Perry, I answered that question about On1. Bill, amazing amount or work in this app, beautifully done. Thank you very much. Did the link show up here? I will go ahead and I will do this. If the link didn't show up, here's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna press this redirect button, and it should redirect you right to the cart for the Pallet Effects launch. So I press the redirect button. Pop-up should appear in your browser. If a pop-up did not appear in your browser, just refer to the email, because the email that's there has the Pallet Effects in there. If right now, if you go to the f64elite.com/shop, you'll see a big banner across the top that says Pallet Effects is ready for you. That's another place that you can access this to. So there's many places that you can access this to. Can you use the Pallet Effects without the zone system? Great question, Craig. Yes, you can. All of the images that I used here, with the exception of the first image, were all created without using the zone system first. So in the training, in the education, in the workflow section, there is a part on there that says Adobe Camera Raw Workflow. If you click on that Adobe Camera Raw Workflow button, that will, or the video, that will show you how I use, going from Adobe Camera Raw, I'm talking about buttons here, like I'm talking about the dang panel. That will take you from Adobe Camera Raw into Photoshop so that you can use just Pallet Effects without going into the zone system. So this is a finishing touch palette. You can use it with any workflow. You don't just have to use it with the Zone System Express. It ports into any workflow that you are currently using. Can I determine when the month membership for F64 starts? Absolutely, Karen. Great question. After the purchase of the Zone System, or the Pallet Effects, after the purchase of the Pallet Effects, you will receive an email with, looks like a little ticket at the bottom that doesn't have an expiration on it. So when you click on that and you open and you start your 1 month, that's when your 1 month starts. What I will say is that at the end of this launch, I'm going to start preparing a course for the end of this month for F64 Elite members called Pallet Effects Recipes, where I'm going to go even further into the creation of some cool things with Pallet Effects. Can you save the training videos on an external hard drive? Absolutely. You get the download. So once you download Pallet Effects, it's in your possession. You can put it on your computers, and you can also put the education on an external device. If you put them on an external device, you can also watch them when you're not connected to the internet. I don't want you to have to be connected to the internet to watch this stuff. Let's see, thank you for taking the time to put this together, Blake. I will hop on your site first thing in the morning. Awesome, thank you very much, Tal. Alan, really impressed with this package. Sweet, thank you so much, Alan. I can't tell you. You know, I launched the Zone System Express in October of last year, and October 20th, I had started working on Pallet Effects. So I've been working on this for 7 months, and it's been a long time. I went through this battle with myself where I almost threw all of it away because it was like, no, you can't make a systematic approach to artistic vision. You can't do it. It's just impossible. But then I started pushing it. I pushed it and I pushed it. And I will say that my wife, God love her, man, she has a soul of fire. She just says, no, you're going to do it and you're going to get it to work. And because I say so. And she's the boss and I work for her. So I got it done. And she's also pregnant and about to have a baby. So when she says do something, you do it. All right. So Dan Lowry, impressive. Thank you. Thank you very much. I have TK Actions installed. Sorry, will this panel work with other panels? Yes, Dave. Any workflow that you have in mind, any workflow at all, this will work with. So even if you use another panel, I don't consider those individuals my competition, because like Tony Kuiper's Actions panel, his luminosity masks, to me, I consider that more of a tool, whereas what I typically give you is a mindset shift. I give you a mindset, did I say that out live? I give you a mindset shift into the workflow direction. So what that means is that I'm not putting Tony's stuff down at all, because I like what his stuff does for luminosity masking. But you can use any of my panels with any workflow, because it's a workflow mindset shift rather than just a tool. So once you get into this, this is a mindset shift to get you working towards being an artist. And that's what you can use this for. So you can use it on just about anything you want. You sold me. All right, sweet. Thanks, Dave. I wasn't trying to sell. I'm just trying to, I'm so excited about it. I just want to talk about it all night long. I can literally be here like a teleconference. Pick up the phone and call now. The first 10 people get. I don't like to do that stuff. Does it work with CS5? Sharon, I apologize. I can't do this with CS5. I really wanted to do it with CS5, but CS5 does not allow for colored buttons. And the functionality of things, it didn't work as I wanted it to with CS5. So it's for CS6 and CC. CS5 is also one of those programs where it's 7 years old at this point. So a lot of, even Adobe's kind of, I'm not saying I'm giving up on it because I do support it with other applications. I just couldn't support CS5 with this application. Excellent. Thank you so much, Mihaela. Thank you so much for showing up. I really do appreciate you guys coming out. This is so awesome. You guys made my life and made my week with you just showing up tonight. Neil, I had some difficulties installing the color lookup tables and having them appear in the device link. It installed into the Windows color driver ICC profiles along with printers, etc. Neil, if you go ahead and shoot me an email, I will see if we can debunk that one together. Gail, great job, love everyone. Thank you so much, Gail. I appreciate it. Remind current, okay, Paula, yes, good question. If you are a current F64 Elite member, you do get an added discount on top of this discount. It's a 15% discount for F64 Elite members only. However, current F64 Elite members do not get access to that free month. So it's basically, it's kind of like that wash. You're already paying for the service on F64 Elite, so I'm taking your month and kind of subtracting it from this price if you do end up going that route. If you're a new person coming to the F64 Elite thing, you'll get that free token to join. David, awesome. Blake, can't wait to try it out and going through the training. Awesome. Thank you so much for showing up. Neil, will do. Thanks so much. Awesome. Appreciate it. Dave, awesome presentation. Still hoping you can come to Colorado for the eclipse in August. If I can, I might have a newborn at that time. My baby is due June 8th. So I don't know if it's a boy or girl yet. We are very excited. As you can tell, I can't wait to just hold a newborn baby and just smell them. Oh, they smell so good. But if I can make it away, I do want to make it out there in August timeframe sometime. Congrats. Thank you, Tal. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Gail, on the new baby. We're so excited. Robert, thanks for a great lesson session. I'm sharing, looking at both purchasing the package and sneak to need to speak to the boss first. I understand that, Robert. Let me know if you need anything, Robert. Peter, excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. Elaine, I got here right. Can I run this video to watch it later? Yes, Elaine, I will be putting this together later. I'll put all of it together, the whole webinar, I'll put it together and I'll have a replay link. The intro discount and the F64 Elite discount both worked. Thank you. Awesome, Tom. Glad to see that that worked. So if you're an F64 Elite member, that discount price will automatically be in the cart. So I love my F64 Elite members and I try not to... I try to treat them as best I can. So all F64 Elite members are also getting a discount on top of the discount. It's 15% on top of the 50%. But like I said, if you're new to becoming an F64 Elite member, you'll have that little token to become a member, which is kind of a wash on that discount. R. David, thank you. I appreciate you stopping by. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I'm going to hit that redirect button again in case it didn't go through the first 2 times. And if you need anything from me, please shoot me an email. I'm probably going to be up all night. I'm probably up till midnight putting all this stuff together. So if you have any questions, shoot me an email. I'm very transparent with my email, blake@f64academy.com, and I will get back to you as soon as I am able. Most people are seeing a 30-second email response time, and that does tend to get a little bit difficult when I get a lot of emails, but I'm working on it. So shoot me an email if I can give you any information. F64 rules, I appreciate it. F64 Academy Elite, see I'm rocking my shirt. I love F64 Elite too, and I love the members there. It's such a positive learning environment. So I can't, like I said at the beginning of this, I can't thank you all enough for showing up tonight, and I can't thank you all enough for being here. And I sincerely cannot stop thanking you enough for all the support that you've had for me over the years. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off so I can get started putting all of this stuff together. Again, just thank you so much. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I hope you enjoy Pallet Effects as much as I do. And remember, label yourself an artist. Write it on a sticky note if you have to. I hope you all have a great night.